Hello, and welcome to In the Art Scene podcast, a place where creatives share their stories. My name is Galina Marquez, and I have another cool story prepared for you today, so let's get to it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to In the Art Scene. I am talking today with a very interesting artist who I just called a segue to the music industry because we've never had musicians on the show before. Her name is Adelina Gonzales. She lives in Colorado, but I will not say anything else. I'll just let her introduce herself properly because we got acquainted very, very recently. So there's very little I know about her.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Adelina Gonzales. I am based out of Denver, Colorado. My artist name is That 5280 Lady, which most people that are not from Denver, Colorado, they get a little confused with the name.
I'm totally confused.
Yeah, which it happens to everybody that's not from here or hasn't lived in Denver for a long period of time. But Denver, Colorado is known as the Mile High City, and 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So my name just kind of came about as it rhymed and that I was from Denver, and I kind of just ran with it after that.
Cool. So you've been born and raised in Colorado, and so you identify yourself with the city. And this is where the name comes from?
Yeah, I born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I've lived a couple other places, but this has definitely always been home for me. And yeah, the name itself just I was looking for an Instagram username, like when Instagram was created, way back when. And I was like, oh, it rhymes really well. I don't know. I never had an artist name before that. So I was like, oh, it rhymes. It works. I like it. I'm just going to use it as my Instagram handle. And then I met my partner years later, and she was like, that's a really good artist name. It's really catchy. It flows really well. You should really think about using that as your artist name. And I was like, you know what, that could work. So I just kind of ran with it. I branded it, got the .com, and just been using it ever since.
Awesome. Well, that's a great story. Well, that's a good thing to start with because I had no idea, and I actually had a question for you about that. Because sometimes you communicate with people, and their like Gmail account will be something I don't know, Mary Smith 1984, something like that, and you're like, okay, people, can you be a little bit more creative? But this is actually awesome. This is creative.
Thank you.
So we had a conversation in a Discord group that we both belong to this past Saturday, and you were talking about your art process and the motivation behind what you do, and that actually caught my attention because there were multiple things that I personally identify with, which is, caring for the environment, thinking outside the box, doing something, giving the second life to things that would have ended up in a landfill, or I don't know, in the best case scenario, probably collecting dust in someone's garage, which this is what I have behind me right now. This is why I'm blurring my background. So you your process is really, really interesting in that way. And a lot of that comes from is it still your day job? Right? No, but it used to be the light technician.
Yes.
The concert industry.
Yeah. So I was a DJ, a stagehand, and a lighting tech for many, many years prior to taking on being an artist full time.
So you're a full-time artist now?
Yes.
Okay. So walk me through the story, how you became a DJ and a stage light technician, and how that all weaved into your art, and where are you now right now?
Definitely. So I started DJing in high school. I've always had a big love for music. Both my parents loved music. They took me to concerts at such a young age. My uncle played drums in a band. And so music has just always been a part of me and my family, since before I was born. Um, and DJing was how I made a living in high school and then right out of high school. And I've always collected vinyl records and music in general, but especially vinyl records. So I've always had, people give me vinyl records or crates of records that I could either DJ with or add to my personal collection or, get rid of. Um, when I started, after I got out of high school and I was DJing and stuff like that, I started doing different types of events that required me to do lighting as well. And I kind of just started falling into the world of concerts and working as a stagehand and eventually into a lighting technician. So when I when I did when I was a lighting tech and a stagehand, I used to work a lot of festivals and concerts and things like that. And you would be surprised at the amount of drum heads that get thrown away at these types of events. Once they don't sound quite right, the drum technicians will just throw them out. And at some of the big festivals that you see, they can be large stacks of drum heads that are just getting thrown out, or depending on the musicians themselves, they always want fresh drum heads. So that's kind of how I started my artwork, which is on recycled materials, vinyl records, and drum heads.
And where did you learn painting?
Well, if you ask my mother, she would tell you that I have been an artist since I can hold a crayon. But I mean, she got me into classes when I was in elementary school. I did some cartooning classes and just kind of had fun with it. And I used to draw a little bit in high school. I draw tattoo designs for people and things like that. But just experiment. I've always loved art. I've always wanted to be an artist. So painting just kind of was something that I always felt like I had to do, right alongside music and listening to music. So just painting and just experimenting and just really, just wanting to create.
So before you started painting on vinyls and drum heads, were you painting on like regular canvas and paper? Or was it like a tipping point for you when you discovered the recycled drum heads and old vinyl records? And I was like, yes, this is going to be my medium. Now I'm the artist I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, so I was just using paper for the most part, canvases occasionally. The reason that I started painting on vinyl records first was out of sheer laziness. I didn't want to go to the store. I was out of canvases. I was out of paper. I didn't want to go to the store and buy anything. I just wanted to create on something. And I had a box of records that was sitting there that I didn't have the heart to throw out because, as a music lover, they were trashed, warped. Nobody wants those records, but I just didn't have the heart to throw them out quite yet. So I had them sitting there just collecting dust. And, I was like, well, it's going to the trash. Maybe I'll just try and paint on this vinyl record and see how it turns out. And I never thought I would continue painting on vinyl records, but it just kind of worked out really well with my love for music and then my love for art. The same with the drumheads. I was already painting on vinyl records and I was at a festival and I was told I had to go take this stack of drumheads to the trash and I just couldn't throw them in the dumpster. I was just like, I'm not a drummer, but I was just like, if I can paint on vinyl records, maybe I can paint on drumheads. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to test it out. This is the perfect time to test it. These are going to the trash. Nobody's going to miss them. I'm just going to take them home and we'll go from there.
And now I think you said you expanded to other things, like you have key cards and other things you're painting on.
Yeah, so I really just became fascinated with recycling and just seeing what else I could paint on and what materials I could use. And then also making my art more affordable to people, especially younger generations that are just beginning to learn about art. And they don't have a budget; they're just kids. So I started painting on cardboard and just other like recycled hotel key cards and um, yeah, like I paint on old paint cans and just really whatever I can find that'll hold paint or hold some sort of sculpture or something like that.
Cool. So, question actually about how those things hold paint. Um, I am working on painting a couple of vinyl records right now because I'm involved in this nonprofit thing, and they asked everybody to they brought a box of vinyl records and said we want to make them on art pieces and auction them for to raise some funds. And I found that it's really not that easy. I'm using acrylic paint, and without some base layer of gesso or something else, it doesn't really work that way. So, and I know you showed at that meeting on Saturday, you showed one drum head that was completely clear. It was transparent and it was a beautiful portrait. So do you use some kind of a base layer, or do you just go straight with the paint, and how do you do that?
I don't use a base layer actually. So my only real secret that I do, and I've shown this in TikTok videos as well, is I actually wash the record with cold water and a little bit of Dawn dish soap just to kind of get some of those oils off the record. And then I use either acrylic or spray paint, and then just begin painting on top of it. I also don't clear coat the top of them. They hold up really well, and I've even some of my older records that I've painted that I still have in my collection. They've never chipped or cracked or anything like that.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, I also wanted to ask you a question about, well, having that sentimental value, especially you being such a lover of music, um, uh, having that thing in your hand that holds someone else's creativity and the history of how it's been used. And you were talking about the drum heads with the pattern of certain drummers that is unique to every musician, every drummer. How does that feel to you?
It feels amazing because I'm especially with the drum heads, with the way that drummers play and the patterns that they create on the drum head. Just from the drum sticks hitting the skins, that pattern I could never create it out of my own hands, and I could never recreate it. Just like artists that paint the way that they paint, you can tell it's them. The same with musicians. It's those little details that I'm able to expand on and just kind of just really showcase their their work and their own rhythm behind it, I guess you could say. That I can showcase my own artwork alongside that, I think is kind of cool, and it kind of coincides with my love for music, and then just appreciating the musician themselves.
Do you feel like you're collaborating with those artists?
I never thought of it that way, but I guess you could say that.
You must have a great collection of your work. Well, first of all, I wanted to ask you what's your style? What's your do you have like a subject that you are like every single time going to when you get a new drum head or a vinyl record, or what's your style of choice?
I think my most cohesive theme and style is probably music, but I've always gravitated more towards abstract work.
Hmm.
It wasn't until recently that I started painting portraits of musicians and then also doing character art, which is my boombot characters, which are little cassette tapes and stereos that are actual little character work. So I would probably say the abstract part of it is the most cohesive. And then, yeah, some of the music themes on top of that.
So you must have a great collection of artworks somewhere sitting in the box, or do you do you sell them all?
I I obviously don't sell them all. Just like any artist, I think that we never quite know when a piece is going to sell. I think especially with my work, people love musicians, people love the themes of it, but sometimes it just doesn't quite fit quite right with their home decor or whatever the case may be. So some of the pieces that I've had, they will sit in my collection for years before they find the right owner. So I always try and remember that, but I always have a stack of artwork that's sitting around, but I just try and be patient and know that when the time is right, the person that's loves it and doesn't question it, is like, I have to have it, that it was meant for them. I just had to wait and be patient for them to find it.
Do you remember the story for every single piece? Like, for example, this is a drum head. This is what I created. The drum head comes from this concert, and this is who was the drummer, and it inspired me to do this thing on that specific drum head. Do you do that, or is it just a random thing?
I wish I had the knowledge and like could remember all of that. But when you're working behind the scenes, like especially at a festival, there's so many musicians that are going through those drum kits that you just can never there's no time to label everything and say, oh, this and that. I do have one set of drum heads that came off of the Stevie Wonder tour that I set aside on purpose because I know it's from the Stevie Wonder tour. And when I finally paint on those, I probably am not going to sell them unless it's to Stevie Wonder himself. So yeah, those are about the only ones, but all the rest of them, I mean, they've come from multiple different concerts. I've had people that were on tours that brought me back drum heads, and it gets a little time consuming to try and keep track and everything like that. But I just go in with the best intentions of, these could have been an A-list drummer, or they could have just been, somebody that was playing at a festival for the first time. And, you never know, but it's kind of cool to have all those musicians, and I don't know, I guess it doesn't really, push that it's like, oh, this was this artist or that, because that's not really what I'm about. Even when I used to work in the concert industry, I never really cared too much about the fame of it all. It was just the music of it.
I see. Well, but let's put one thing out to the universe. Let's make Stevie Wonder listen to this episode of the podcast and commission you to paint on his drum heads.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. So since you're not working in the concert industry anymore, how are you sourcing your drum heads?
So I have a pretty decent stack that I have been gifted from my friends that still work in the industry. But at the end of the day, I can call anybody up that's still working concerts and say, hey, can you throw me a stack of drum heads? I'm running low. And you would be surprised at the amount of drummers that don't necessarily tour, or they don't necessarily play all the time, even like local bands, that they all have a stack of drum heads that they couldn't get rid of because they didn't sound great anymore, but they just didn't want to throw them in the trash. So there's always drum heads available.
I honestly, before you told what you're working on, I had no idea they are replaceable. This is how much I know about music.
Yeah. So they, because it's like a plastic film, once you beat them to a certain point, they don't have that same sound. So they just start sounding a little flat. So that's why you have to replace them at a certain point.
Well, let's hope that in the near future, drummers are not going to completely switch to some of those electronic drum kits, because those are like, I don't know, I've seen those and I heard what they sound like, but it doesn't make the same effect to me, at least. I don't know. Again, I'm not a musician.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think a lot of drummers will switch for quite a while. I think it's a different sound that
Yeah.
you can't duplicate in the electronic drum kits for sure.
Did you ever play any instrument yourself?
I didn't. I sort of tried to learn how to play the piano when I was younger. I also tried to learn how to play the violin for a little bit when I was in, I believe, elementary school. But playing an instrument just never really stuck for me. I think that's why I enjoyed DJing so much, because I could showcase everybody else's work and really kind of make it my own, whether it was like remixing music or creating my own beats and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I could never get into actually playing an instrument.
When you were DJing, were you scratching the vinyls?
I did,
You
yeah.
did?
I would DJ with both vinyl records and CDs.
Cool. Cool. Did you repurpose those vinyls too? Oh, and you mentioned that you were working on CDs as well, right? Like a
Yes,
smaller format?
yes. So I think that some of the vinyl records that I used to DJ with are still in my collection that I still listen to, because it's music that I actually liked to hear. Most of the stuff that I repurpose for vinyl records is just miscellaneous damaged stuff that people have given me, or, you know, just the vinyl records from like the thrift store that, nobody wants to buy, Reader's Digest type stuff. And then, the CDs, same thing, is just once the format kind of died out. I don't even think I have a CD player at the moment, but same thing. People give me boxes of stuff like that to paint on, and I just kind of run with it and play around and see what I can create.
Cool. Let's take a short coffee break. This podcast is the passion project that I produce and finance myself. If you want to support the show, you are welcome to volunteer, but the easier way is to just buy me a coffee. There's a link for it in the show notes and on our website, intheartscene.com. Thank you for your support. There was another cool comment on the Discord conversation about the hate comments that you get for painting on vinyls. And I find it very interesting because there is a, like, you can see where people are coming from, but at the same time, this is not your purpose to like ruin the vinyl record, especially if it's valuable. So can you talk a little bit what kind of comments you're getting? Maybe you can quote something, and how you deal with it and how you react to it, and what's behind your motivation, which I already know, but it's anyway very interesting.
Definitely. So yeah, I think it's just fascinating that people just assume that I'm taking, a rare Beatles album that's playable and just deciding to paint something on it, when that's just not the case. They're literally trash vinyl records, stuff that record stores threw out, but I've received messages. When I had my phone number listed, I would receive calls from DJs and stuff like that would call me and be like, you suck. Like, you're horrible for trashing these records. Like, what is wrong with you? And to me, it's hilarious, because I'm like, you're not going to play the Reader's Digest top 40 hits from the 1930s. Like, that's just not what you're DJing. nobody's playing that record. There's 10 copies of it at the thrift store. So it's hilarious to me. I use it as content for my social media all the time. And I always joke around every time I post a vinyl record video. I'm like, here I am damaging, rare records again. Because people just like, I don't think they hear themselves when they say these types of things. But yeah, once people realize that I'm just trying to save them from the landfill, and it literally is stuff that nobody wants, they're very, very thankful. And, some of them have come around, but others just don't want to hear it. They don't want anything to do with it. But most people especially people that love music, love what I do, because they know that once a record's warped or trashed, it's done. There's nothing you can do for it. You either let it collect dust or you throw it out with the trash.
Yeah, and I kind of, I kind of get it because I'm a big sucker for thrift items, and sometimes once I sourced, oh my God, a copy of the Life magazine from 1946, and to me, having a background in marketing, seeing all those advertisements, like old American advertisements for like they're sexist, there's like the cigarettes, doctors are smoking cigarettes and all of that. So it's kind of a piece of a history which is hilarious and like unacceptable for us right now. But you're holding it, and like between an article about fashion and an article about that was right after World War II, so there was something about that happening, and you see this advertisement. I was like, this is the freaking piece of history. I know that there's nothing I can do with this magazine. I'm most likely not going to read it, but I paid $20 for it because it is a piece of history. I have no freaking idea what to do with it. I don't even have a place to display it or store it properly, but I'm just so happy I have it in my possession. So, and I can assume that a lot of people feel the same way about old records. Again, if it's something that represents sentimental value or historical kind of I shouldn't say significance, but maybe significance for them. In that case, maybe they feel like the thing has been ruined. But I also see the point that giving it a second life, you are actually helping to preserve it, because in this situation, you can display it and enjoy it rather than like me with that magazine, put it in, in the best case scenario in a plastic folder and shove it on the shelf, right? Where it's going to collect the dust until one day, 20 years from now, will remember, I was like, oh, I have that historic thing because it came up in a conversation with someone, right? Maybe it's better for me to cut it out and make a collage out of it. Who knows?
Yeah, I definitely see both sides of it for sure. I think that there's some records that I get in a box that I would never play myself, but there is people out there looking for them. Thankfully, most of the records that I use are the ones that they're not even worth $1 on the record collection websites. And like I said, with the thrift stores, when there's 10 copies of it at every thrift store, like Herb Albert's, Tijuana Brass, you can go to any thrift store, find at least one record from him. I don't think that, really anybody is longing to, keep that as a historical record, especially when it's so available. I mean, I guess maybe in 20 years, if all of the artists have destroyed, all of these records, maybe they won't be available anymore. But, the reality is that, as a society, we keep continuing to create all this stuff that's disposable. And so I get that people want to hang on to those things and they want to, have something physical to, remember things by. But the reality is that, unless it's a very, niche group of people that are collecting these things, they're probably going to end up in the trash. The same with like an estate sale. You see all this stuff that someone collected, and it meant the world to them. They collected it for years. They kept it, they took great care of it. Maybe they even played the record or, the music or read the magazine. But the reality is when they pass away, usually who's ever handling the estate just sells it off.
Doesn't care. Yeah.
And if it doesn't sell off, it goes to the trash. So what is it really worth it to try and like hold on to all these things all the time? I think that, the second life is really the key for me, because at least it still exists and you can still say, oh, hey, that used to be, this record, or I remember, this memory or whatever, but at least, on the wall, you can appreciate it as art. So, yeah.
I have one vinyl record like that I still, the only idea that I have is just to put it in the frame on the wall. My husband is a musician and a huge, he's got huge appreciation for like 60s, 70s music. And at the swap meet once I found, there are lots of those guys who are selling very old scratched records for $1 to $5. So I found, a Beatles record, and I think it was the Abbey Road. And there's a number on the cover, and we looked it up, and it's actually like the real like first or second edition of that. But the vinyl itself is completely scratched. It's unplayable. So I paid $5 for it, and I brought it as a gift to my husband. So, but it's still collecting dust. I don't know what to do with it. To me personally, probably the cover like is more valuable because it has this little number that identifies its authenticity. But I don't know. Would you take a commission if someone like me would send you something like this? Like, hey, I have a sentimental value. I would really love to enjoy this piece, but I have no idea what to do with it. Can you create a piece of art for me with this?
Yeah, definitely. Because you can easily, keep the cover separate, and they sell like the frames that you could frame just the cover and the vinyl record beside it. So you could easily create, some artwork on top of the record, especially if it doesn't play, and then still be able to, keep that cover intact and keep the value of the cover, because people are buying just the covers as well. So
have you ever had requests like that?
Not anything. No, I haven't had any requests like that. I usually get, just requests for general portraits of musicians. And usually it's on canvases and things like that. Occasionally I'll get one for, a record or, a drumhead.
All right. Well, would you like to have more requests like that? Because that's another thing that we can send out to the universe right now.
Yeah, sure. That sounds good to me. I don't mind painting portraits of musicians.
All right, guys. So everybody heard that. She said that. She's just going to paint on your vinyl record if you want to. What else do you want or think of to use as a base for your art? So you have drum heads, you have your CDs and vinyls, you have pieces of cardboard, card keys. Is there anything else that you are kind of thinking about that you could save from the landfill that you haven't tried yet?
I'm always thinking of ideas.
Please say VHS. Please say VHS.
I would do VHS, but I'm trying not to collect more things, because if I don't paint on stuff fast enough, it just sits here collecting dust. So, I don't want to add another thing to it. I do occasionally paint on cassette tapes. And so I've been trying to work in some of those things, just because I have a few cassette tapes that were trashed, to use. So yeah, I would say yes to VHS tapes, but I just don't want to add another to my pile of, different canvases that I haven't painted on yet. But yeah, I'm always thinking of ideas. I mean, I'm always online, seeing, what things that are kind of gone out of style and stuff like that, of what I can create with. But yeah, I'm trying to focus on just a few things. My main focus since 2020 has been digital art. So even just trying to get rid of, kind of the canvases that I already do have. And then, yeah, without adding anything new to it too much, at least.
What would be your dream project?
I have always wanted to do like a big drumhead installation, with, you know, the LED lights, and then, portraits of musicians and things like that. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've wanted to do, because I'm not really an artist that's really interested in murals or stuff like that, but I would love to do like an installation with some of the recycled materials and stuff like that.
And I know that you are actually creating not only paintings, but you also make sort of sculptures out of some of that, at least the vinyl records, I know for sure.
Yes. So I've been creating roses or flowers out of the vinyl records for quite some time now. Most recently, I was commissioned by the Athena Project, to do something with the theme of women in their infinite forms. So it was kind of an open-ended commission there. And so I created a fedora hat sculpture out of vinyl records. And then I also used uh, just old sheet music. I used an old cassette tape and stuff like that, and just kind of did a little bit of mixed media, but I made an actual hat out of the vinyl records.
I'll make sure to put the photos of everything that we're talking about in the blog post so people actually can see. But you guys always can and should go and check her Instagram, which we also will have links to in the blog post and the show notes. So yeah, just keep up with this artist because she's always doing something very interesting.
Thank you so much for that.
All right. So how long have you been doing this?
So I started doing the art on vinyl records about maybe 10 to 12 years ago at this point. And then I have been doing art full time for about 6 or 7 years now. So yeah, it's just been a work in progress.
Well, that's an achievement. Seriously. Uh, I I cannot commit to a full time. I mean, I am kind of calling myself a full time artist, but I'm still having like side gigs, side tracks, to supplement that. But yeah, I mean, it is amazing when you have enough resources and inspiration to commit to doing your art all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
there's always something that comes with it that you have to uh, do. Like we were just talking about the pop shop live. That's a big task.
Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully, I have a huge support system, with my partner who, lets me be a full-time artist. So, and supplements the income when we need it. So, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be doing this. And I don't even know that I would be able to balance the full-time job with actually doing art. But yeah, everything is work, because it's only me doing my inventory. I do my own website, all my social media. and then the creating on top of that. So it's just that huge balance of, trying to make everything work and trying to always try new things. Like the Pop Shop Live is my next step. And then I also do a lot of print on demand stuff through Threadless and Redbubble, which you can purchase like t-shirts and, throw pillows and stuff like that. So, supplementing those types of things that are digital artwork that's a little bit faster creating versus, an actual portrait painting that can take me a few weeks to a month to create. So it's just trying to find that balance of everything. So I'm thankful that I have a support system that allows me to do all this.
Yeah, that actually has been a recurring question that was coming up in the whole third season, and I think it's going to be um, going forward like a bigger and bigger topic about being an entrepreneur and a business owner on top of being a creative person, which it seems like pretty much all of us in the art scene have to deal with this balance and figure out the administrative part of things and financial part of things and marketing part of things on top of actually creating a work. Have you, so far, have you been selling your work only online, or you were going to the same music festivals and having a booth, or how do you do that? How do you find collectors?
So prior to 2020, I was in an art gallery in Denver's largest art district, which is the Santa Fe Art District. So here in Colorado, they do First Friday art walks. And so I was at one of the largest galleries in the district there, and we would get, 10,000 people through the door on a First Friday. And that was primarily where I sold my art prior to 2020. But obviously, with everything that, happened, it's been a shift to online. So now I've only been online for the past, 3 years. And so I'm trying to learn the ins and outs of that and just trying to do more shipping, but it requires, a lot more because I do have to worry about updating my inventory on a regular basis. And then also, photographs, which, when you're in an in-person show, people see it with their own eyes. You don't have to have a great photograph to show off the work. So just now shifting into online is kind of where I'm planning on staying for a little while. But it's just that balance again.
Yeah. It's totally different scope of work.
Definitely.
Right. We're close to the top of the hour. And sometimes I like to ask questions like what's your word of wisdom for someone who is striving to become a full-time artist and or trying to find their own voice? Like for you, obviously you were creative your entire life, but the music kind of polished the whole thing for you, and now you have your visual creative work tied with music as close as can be. So what would you say to other artists who are still like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm still like looking for my style, I don't have a unique voice, or I'll never make it? So what would you say?
Well, I would first say stop listening to those types of mindsets and that type of thing, because the reality is that you are good enough, and there are always going to be people that love your work and that will support your work, no matter what it looks like. You just have to stay true to yourself and what you actually like to do. You don't try and create for other people just because you think it'll sell. Create what you want to create, what you like to create, what you're passionate about, and people will find you. But it's a long game. It's not get rich quick overnight type of thing. And also that there is a ton of different ways to sell art. There's not just the visual arts. there's also the digital world. There's also artists that just do like home remodels or home staging for realtors, and so there's always different types of art. There's always going to be a market if you're true to yourself for it, and just don't give up, because it's going to take work. It's going to take a long time to get where you want to be. But people will see that authenticity, and they will appreciate what you're doing for who you are. So just don't ever give up, and just don't listen to anybody that says, oh, your art's not good enough. Well, that's not your audience. Then that person is not somebody that will ever buy your art. Just get those types of people out of your head and just keep moving forward and do what you love.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great advice. All right. I hope everybody are inspired. So get your brushes, go to the studio right now.
Go create something. I don't care what it is. Something.
All right. Thank you so much, Adelina, for taking your time and talking to me about your amazing process, because I'm truly in awe of what you're doing. And I want to make sure that I have a good representation of your artwork in all different forms on the show notes and the blog post. And of course, we will have all the references and links listed so people can find you, can sign up to your Pop Shop Live. Oh, and one more thing, keeping in mind that this is probably going to be on air sometime in June. If you have anything to promote that far, and I will circle back with you when I'll be getting ready to release the episode, you have a good opportunity to plug anything in right now.
I don't have anything at the moment, but I'm always working on something. So the best way to, find out what I'm working on is to follow me on social media. I am that 5280 lady on everything. So I'm easy to find. And yeah, just, thank you so much for having me. And it's been an honor chatting with you today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. Well, thanks everybody. And I will see you guys soon in the art scene. Bye. It has been another episode of In the Art Scene podcast. If you liked today's conversation, please give us a good review on Apple and go listen to other great stories. Check out our website intheartscene.com or follow us on Instagram at intheartscene for more content. If you are a creative and you want to share your story, shoot us a message from the website or DM us on Instagram. Look forward to seeing you next time in the art scene.